The wrong stop. It was supposed to be a peaceful Sunday drive through the sleepy streets of Ash Grove, a small Tennessee town that hadn't seen much change since the 60s. The kind of town where front porches still held rocking chairs, and the local diner knew your name and your grandpa's war stories. But on this day, something different rippled through the town's stillness. A dark gray BMW rolled through the intersection near the gas station, its windows tinted, its driver calm, unbothered. At the wheel sat Evelyn Pierce, a composed, dignified woman in her early 70s. Her salt and pepper curls were tucked neatly under a navy blue beret. She wore a pressed olive coat, minimal makeup, and a gold star-shaped pin near her heart. From the outside, she looked like someone's favorite aunt. But Evelyn was anything but ordinary. A few blocks away, Officer Rick Dunner sat in his cruiser, nursing his third cup of gas station coffee and the leftover bitterness of his recent divorce. When he saw the unfamiliar BMW gliding past the stop sign, his fingers tightened around the steering wheel. A black woman alone, out-of-state plates, tinted windows, nice car. His mind started stitching together a narrative that wasn't there. No turn signal, no full stop, enough to pounce. He flicked on the red and blue lights, swerved out behind her, and within seconds, the cruiser's siren howled through the lazy streets. Evelyn's eyes caught the lights in her rearview. She didn't panic. She didn't even mutter under her breath. She just pulled over calmly, parked the car on a gravel shoulder, turned the engine off, and placed both hands on the wheel. She had done this before, too many times. Officer Donner strutted up to her window, puffed up with self-importance. The townsfolk always called him Ricky the Righteous, not because he was, but because he acted like he was the sheriff in an old Western movie. He didn't greet her, didn't ask questions. He just barked. License and registration. Step out of the car. Evelyn blinked once. I'd like to know what I'm being stopped for, officer. You didn't make a complete stop. That's a violation. That doesn't usually warrant stepping out of the vehicle, she replied, calm and direct. Are you resisting? He snapped. No, she replied evenly. Just asking. Out. Now. Evelyn unbuckled, stepped out slowly. Her movements were measured, intentional. Even now, she moved like a soldier, disciplined, sharp. But Donner didn't see it. Or maybe he didn't want to. You got any weapons on you? He asked, stepping too close. I do not. I am retired military. I have a DOD-issued ID and a waiver in the glove box for the window tint. Military? Huh. What were you? A nurse. Intelligence and strategy. Retired Major General. My ID is. I don't care what you say you are, he interrupted, pulling out his cuffs. I asked for license and registration, not a resume. He twisted her arms behind her back before she could react. Sir, Evelyn said, barely raising her voice, you're making a serious mistake. He snorted. Lady, the only mistake would be letting you drive off without a thorough search. Behind them, a teenager across the street began filming. His mouth hung open in disbelief. The black woman in cuffs didn't resist. She didn't yell. But something about her stillness. It unnerved even the cop. Back at the station, as Donner escorted Evelyn through the doors in handcuffs, the receptionist looked up, and her face drained of color. Officer Donner, you arrested her. The woman whispered. Do you know who that is? No idea, he shrugged. Probably some grifter trying to pull rank. But Evelyn just turned her head and said one word that chilled the room. Phone. Donner scoffed. You think this is some TV show? You don't get a call yet. She said nothing, simply raised her eyebrow. 2 minutes later, the chief himself walked into the room, red in the face. Rick, he barked. What the hell did you just do? What are you talking about? Rick asked, suddenly uneasy. The chief turned to Evelyn, breath tight. Ma'am, I apologize for this. Evelyn gave a tight nod. I need to make a secure call. Pentagon switch line. Clearance code. Indigo X-ray 7. The entire room froze. Rick staggered back. What? She looked him in the eyes. You arrested a retired 2-star general with Pentagon clearance. For a stop sign. The phone call took less than a minute. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She simply spoke in a voice sharpened by years of command. By the time she stepped out of the station, a black government SUV was already waiting. Inside sat a man in a gray suit and earpiece. He opened the door without a word. Behind them, Donner stood like a man whose world had cracked open beneath his feet. As the SUV pulled away, a quiet crowd had formed near the station steps. Locals, veterans, and officers who had heard the rumors spreading like wildfire through town. He cuffed a Pentagon general. Cameras were rolling now. The footage was already online. In the back seat, Evelyn looked out the window. Not at the station, but at the future. Let them record, she said softly. Let the world remember what silence looks like before it speaks. The SUV pulled away from the station, gliding smoothly over the cracked pavement of Ashgrove. Inside, Evelyn sat upright, silent but alert. The man in the passenger seat, a tall, stone-faced agent in a charcoal suit, glanced back briefly and said only, "You good, ma'am?" Evelyn nodded once. "It'll take more than that to rattle me." The vehicle turned down an access road that led to the nearby military airstrip, used only on special occasions. One such occasion was today. As the SUV pulled into the secured gates, 2 guards snapped to attention. They saluted her. She didn't return it with her hand. Her wrists were still sore. But the look in her eyes was salute enough. Inside the temporary operations tent, a communications officer handed her a phone. The call had already been patched through. She didn't ask for names, just delivered one sentence. "This is General Evelyn Pierce, retired. I was unlawfully detained by a local officer while identifying myself under DoD credentials. This cannot go unanswered." On the other end, a voice replied with all the seriousness of a missile launch. "Understood. Consider it handled." She ended the call and exhaled slowly. Her fingers tightened around the phone for just a moment. Then she handed it back and walked outside. Meanwhile, back at the station, Officer Donner paced like a caged dog. Word had traveled fast. Faster than he expected. The police chief wasn't speaking to him anymore, and the receptionist wouldn't even meet his eyes. Then came the press. A regional news van arrived within the hour. A female reporter in a bright blazer stood on the sidewalk, microphone in hand, her voice urgent. "We're outside the Ashgrove Police Department, where a highly decorated military veteran, identified as retired General Evelyn Pierce, was reportedly handcuffed and detained this morning under suspicious and unverified circumstances." From inside the station, Donner stared at the screen. His name hadn't been mentioned yet, but it was only a matter of time. He tried to defend himself to the chief, who was now furiously reviewing bodycam footage. She didn't say she was a general. She was just driving slow with tinted windows in. "You didn't even ask for her ID properly," the chief barked. "You cuffed her before checking her documents. You escalated for no reason." She gave me attitude. She was calm. I thought she was faking. The chief's hand slammed the desk. "You thought wrong." Donner fell silent. Elsewhere in Tehran, the young man who had filmed the initial arrest, an 18-year-old named Micah Grant, uploaded the video to TikTok and Twitter with a simple caption. "They arrested my grandma's old commander. He's so done." By sundown, it had been viewed 2.3 million times. Major news networks had picked it up. The hashtags #JusticeForEvelyn and #RawMoment were trending across platforms. Veterans, active duty soldiers, and public figures began reposting with words like disgrace, shameful, and this is why reform matters. One video showed a montage of Evelyn's military career, photos of her in the field, briefing generals, hugging soldiers in combat gear, set to slow, haunting music. Underneath it, the caption read, "You see a black woman in a car. We see a national hero. Know the difference?" That night, Evelyn returned home. Her modest brick house sat on a quiet street outside town, where the street lamps flickered and the wind whispered through tall oak trees. She parked her car, sat there for a moment, then looked down at her wrist, still bearing a faint red mark from the cuffs. She rubbed it gently, not out of pain, but remembrance. The kind of memory you keep as a scar. Not all wounds bleed. Inside, she poured herself a glass of water, turned on her favorite jazz station, and sat by the window in her reading chair. Her medals were still locked in the wooden box beneath the bed. Her military portrait still hung in the hallway. But she didn't need them tonight. The world had seen her without all that. And it had been enough. Her niece, Tasha, called. Her voice buzzed with both rage and admiration. "Auntie, I saw everything. It's going viral. People are mad. Really mad." "They should be," Evelyn said quietly. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay. Just tired. I want to come over. Tomorrow. Bring your garden gloves. The weeds are getting bold." That made Tasha laugh. Just enough. The next morning, a convoy of black SUVs and one military transport vehicle rolled into Ashgrove. The sight of them caused every curtain in town to twitch. From those vehicles emerged senior DoD representatives, legal officers, media advisors, and most importantly, Deputy Director Athena Cole, Special Liaison to Homeland Security. She walked into the Ashgrove Police Department without knocking. Her voice was calm, but her presence, earth-shaking. She dropped a sealed letter on the chief's desk. "Effective immediately, Officer Rick Dunner is suspended. An investigation will proceed under federal oversight." The chief swallowed hard. "Yes, Mom." Athena turned on her heel and left without another word. Outside, a crowd had gathered, holding handmade signs. "Salute our WOMEN warriors. She fo juchi for US. We fight for here. Black EVETS mater." Know her name, General EVLY Empire C. Across the street, Evelyn stood near her car, arms folded, eyes steady. She wasn't here for revenge. She was here for accountability. Athena joined her. "Would you like to make a statement?" Evelyn shook her head. "Not yet. Let them speak first. The people have waited long enough." The camera crews turned to her. Microphones extended. Questions flew. But Evelyn just raised one hand gently and said, "This isn't about me. It's about everyone who gets profiled, dismissed, and dishonored for simply existing in the wrong skin. This story has a beginning, but the ending, we write that together. The FALOT begins." The next morning, Ashgrove didn't wake up to the sound of roosters or the scent of biscuits like it usually did. It woke up to helicopters and headlines. By 7:15 a.m., the town's welcome sign had been photographed by 3 different national journalists. The once ignored diner now had a news van parked out front, and a reporter was already filming with a boom mic bobbing above her head. Atop the local courthouse, drones hovered like metal Ds. For the first time in a century, Ashgrove wasn't invisible. And it wasn't proud. Inside the town's police station, silence was a heavy fog. The officers who had once chuckled at Rick Donner's bad jokes now avoided eye contact. The coffee machine sputtered, and even that seemed too loud. In the break room, Officer Donner sat alone, his badge on the table. He hadn't slept. Not really. Just laid on his couch replaying the footage, rereading the comments, and scanning his phone until the screen felt like it burned. His name was trending, and not in the good way. Racist cop detains war hero. Ashgrove scandal. Officer cuffs a general. This is why we still protest. The bodycam footage had gone public after a Freedom of Information request. His tone, his words, the way he grabbed Evelyn before even looking at her ID, the smirk on his face when he mocked her military career. And then the face of General Evelyn Pierce, calm, controlled, dignified as stone, never raising her voice, never flinching. People weren't just angry. They were heartbroken. Washington, D.C. The Pentagon. In a windowless room at the Pentagon, a dozen senior officials reviewed the footage in silence. One tapped his pen against a legal pad. Another leaned back, sighing through his nose. At the head of the table sat General Malcolm Rourke, head of Veterans Affairs. His silver mustache twitched once. Then he spoke. She gave 32 years to this country, never took a scandal, never once raised her voice out of turn. And this is how she gets thanked. An aide spoke carefully. Sir, we've contacted her. She's not interested in suing. She just wants accountability. She deserves more than that. Rourke said, make it happen. Quietly, but thoroughly. Orders were given. And the machine started turning. In ASHGROV, Rosa stands her ground. At 11:20 a.m., Rosa stood outside the local community center, not in uniform, but in a simple navy blue blouse and gray slacks. She wasn't here to perform. She was here to teach. A press conference had been scheduled. But Rosa wasn't interested in podiums today. Instead, she stood in a circle of folding chairs with veterans from every branch. Black, white, Latino, male, and female. They all knew what she knew. This wasn't just about one cop or one arrest. It was about legacy, about honor. Reporters swarmed, but Rosa didn't allow a single one to speak first. This isn't a spectacle, she began, loud enough for every camera to hear. This is a moment of reckoning, not just for a town or an officer, but for the systems that allow men like that to wear badges without knowing who they're talking to, or more importantly, who they're disrespecting. She gestured to the veterans. We wore the same uniforms. We signed the same oaths. We took bullets, made sacrifices, buried our brothers and sisters, but one stoplight away from home, and it's like none of that mattered. A Vietnam vet in the circle wiped a tear. Another, an amputee in a wheelchair, raised his fist slowly in support. The crowd didn't erupt in applause. They stood in silence. And it was louder than anything. The officiers de UNIFO all BGNs. Back at the station, Donner was summoned by Internal Affairs. He walked into the back office where two men in suits were waiting. One had a tablet. The other had a file. They didn't introduce themselves. Officer Donner, please explain why you failed to verify identification before initiating detainment. I had suspicion. Suspicion is not probable cause. The first man snapped. Her license was visible. Her behavior was calm. You escalated. She was, look, I thought she was lying. That story about the Pentagon. She wasn't lying. The second man interrupted. You know how we know. Because Homeland Security confirmed her clearance 5 minutes after she was detained. 5 minutes. That's all it took. Donner sat back in the chair, shoulders sinking. The agent laid down a thick folder. Complaints, Officer Donner. 3 in the past year. 2 for racial profiling. 1 for misconduct during a traffic stop. All previously dismissed. But now, he snapped the folder shut. They're being reopened. The FA Manialois Re-Station. That night, Rosa had dinner with her niece and nephew. Tasha brought baked mac and cheese. Her brother Marcus brought laughter. But under it all, the weight lingered. Why didn't you call us? Tasha asked. I didn't want you to worry. Too late for that. Marcus leaned forward. So what happens next? Rosa stirred her tea. I don't want money. I don't want headlines. I want change. What kind of change? Training. Oversight. A federal mandate that requires police departments to verify veteran IDs, especially in traffic stops. I want it called the Evelyn Protocol. Tasha smiled. Named after you. Named after all of us, Rosa said. Named for every black vet who gets questioned more than thanked. One final mistake, but Officer Donner hadn't learned yet. That night, instead of staying quiet, he went live on social media. He blamed media spin, said Evelyn played the race card, claimed the military throws around rank like royalty. He was smug, confident, and within 30 minutes, his department received over 15,000 complaints. By morning, his badge was revoked. His severance, gone. His future, tainted. His name now forever attached to a case study titled Arrogance, Assumption, and the Cost of a Uniform. 2 weeks later, a new beginning. Rosa stood inside the U.S. Capitol building. She was not testifying in court. She was speaking at a congressional oversight hearing on law enforcement reform and military veteran protections. She wore her full-service uniform this time, not out of vanity, but necessity. Because in this country, sometimes you had to wear your worth like armor. Her speech was short. I don't want revenge. I want reform. I want respect not as a black woman, not even as a general, but as a human being. The committee listened. Some wiped tears. The bill was introduced within the week. It passed both chambers. Unanimously. Later that evening, Rosa sat once more on her porch. The crickets were out. The breeze gentle. Her phone buzzed. Another interview request. She ignored it. She was planting seeds tomorrow. In her backyard. For the spring. Because that's what she did. She planted hope in places that had forgotten how to bloom. And across America, a message was planted too, deep into the roots of law and memory. Respect isn't optional. And silence doesn't mean surrender. The nation waits her rise. Ash Grove had changed. What used to be a sleepy, narrow-minded town with nothing more than pickup trucks and porch swings was now the epicenter of a national movement. A place where one retired black woman, falsely accused and handcuffed on the side of a road, had pulled the mask off an entire system, with nothing more than her silence, her poise, and one phone call. But Evelyn Pierce didn't see herself as a symbol. She still took her morning walks at 6 a.m., wearing the same sneakers she'd worn across sandstorms in Kandahar. She still picked tomatoes from her garden and hummed the same hymn from basic training. She still washed her own dishes, except now, across her quiet Tennessee street, a new banner had been placed outside the elementary school, the Evelyn Pierce Learning Center for Leadership and Integrity. The school board had renamed it unanimously, not because of politics, but because of truth. The moment a nation. It began with a single question, asked during a CNN interview with Rosa on the Capitol steps. What would you say to Officer Donner today if you had the chance? She didn't blink, didn't hesitate. I'd say thank you. The reporter flinched. Thank you. Yes, Rosa said. Thank you for showing the country what quiet racism still looks like, what unchecked power still acts like, and what real dignity does in return. That clip hit 24 million views in 48 hours. Everyone from late-night hosts to veterans to human rights leaders reposted it, and something shifted in the nation's pulse. Back in ASHGROV, a hard TONVURSATON. On a gray Thursday morning, Rosa answered a knock at her door. It wasn't media. It wasn't politicians. It was Officer Donner's mother. Mrs. Pierce, she said softly, nervously twisting the hem of her coat. I know this might be strange, but I had to come. Rosa invited her in. Poured tea. Sat across the table in the same chair she used to write strategy memos for the Pentagon. He's not doing well, the woman whispered. He lost everything. I'm not here to excuse him. I want to understand how you are still standing. Rosa smiled sadly. Because I've had to stand through worse. Because standing still is sometimes the only way to move forward. There was silence between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was honest. He didn't just hurt you, the mother said. He shamed all of us. No, Rosa said gently. He revealed what was already there. And now it can't hide anymore. The woman cried quietly. Rosa placed her hand over hers, not in forgiveness, but in clarity. The Evelyn Pyrotoxico goes national. 1 month after Rosa's arrest, the Evelyn Protocol became federal law. It mandated immediate verification of veteran status before any detainment, required racial bias and veteran sensitivity training for all law enforcement, civilian oversight of local departments in communities under 50,000 residents, dashcam and bodycam footage to be uploaded and reviewed by state boards within 72 hours of any arrest involving use of force. Senator Maxwell, the Vietnam vet who had championed the bill, stood beside Rosa when it passed. He said only 6 words. We failed her. Never again. Never. A VSAZTVF prom TAKPRESITNT. It wasn't announced. There was no media caravan. Just a black SUV that rolled up Rosa's driveway one rainy afternoon. Out stepped a man with gray hair, warm eyes, and the weight of a divided country on his shoulders. The President of the United States. He wasn't there for a photo op. He wasn't there with cameras or scripts. He was there to say, "Thank you. You reminded this country what strength looks like," he said. "I didn't want to," Rosa said. "I just wanted to live." "And yet," he replied, "you made history." He offered her the Presidential Medal of Honor for civil courage. She accepted it, not for herself, she made clear, but for every veteran of color who came home to a country that saluted their service overseas, but doubted their humanity at home. The nation are ESPONDs. In the following weeks, murals of Rosa Pierce went up in Chicago, Atlanta, Oakland, and Harlem. Schools began using her story in civics lessons. A streaming service announced a docuseries titled The Wrong Stop, The Evelyn Pierce Story. A girl named Serena, aged 9, wrote Rosa a letter. It read, "Dear General Pierce, I want to be strong like you. I want to wear a uniform, but mostly, I want to be brave when the world isn't fair." Rosa wrote back, "You already are, Serena. Just don't let them change you." 1 FINAL end. The state of Tennessee invited Rosa to speak at the National Law Enforcement Academy graduation. Many expected her to decline. She didn't. She walked into that hall in full military dress, her medals gleaming, her spine straight, and her eyes sharp. She stood before 172 new officers and delivered a speech titled, "How Not to Become the Villain." You will have a badge, but don't confuse that with a crown. You will carry a weapon, but don't mistake that for power. You will have authority, but never forget, you are not above the people. You are of the people. And you do not get to choose who is worth protecting. You protect them all, equally, or not at all. By the end, the room stood in silence. Then, one by one, the cadets saluted her. Every last one. Silo Sing Seen, all in her porche. The years went by. But Rosa never changed. She still sat on her porch in the evenings with a cup of tea. The wind still whispered through the oaks. And she still hummed old war tunes under her breath. A local reporter once asked her, "Do you think what you did changed anything?" She sipped her tea and smiled. "I didn't change the world. I just reminded it who I was. And maybe that's enough." And in a world where silence is often forced, where dignity is often denied, and where heroes are sometimes hidden in plain sight, Evelyn Rosa Pierce didn't shout. She stood still, and the world finally learned how to listen.